Welcome to my session. Today I will be talking about how to get started with X ALM. So we will have a basic overview how to develop and checking the code and have build pipelines and releases, all with X++. Well, thanks to the organization for having me and all my colleagues here in this nice bootcamp. And I think today is it's not the last. The last will be on the 20th of March, so you still can join it. And well, today we are in the Finance and Supply Chain Developer Bootcamp, as you can see. And the agenda for, well, not the agenda, sorry. First, I will present myself. So I'm Adrià Ariste. I'm a Dynamics 365 F&O developer and technical architect, and I'm currently working at Docentric. I'm a Microsoft MVP since 2020, so hopefully this year it will be my 5th, and I will have the 5-year ring, I hope. And you can reach me on LinkedIn, and you can read my articles on ariste.info. Feel free to contact me if you have any questions about this session or whatever I can help with. And now with the agenda. First, we will talk a bit about different development environment types, then about using TFVC or Git. We will see a basic development flow, very basic. And then last 2 points are a live demo where we will get the code to our development environment, and then we will explain a bit about CI and CD pipelines, so build and releases. So, as I said, we will start with environment types. Right now, we have 3 different environment types. The first one would be cloud-hosted environments, which have been around since the beginning of Dynamics 365 F&O. Then we have the BHD. The BHD, it's a file that you can use to create a virtual machine with everything that you need for development, and you can use this BHD on your local PC, or if you want, you can deploy a virtual machine on Azure using this BHD. And finally, we have, and of course, these first 2 experiences are linked to LCS, which is the old platform management platform that we use to manage the environments, both the development environments and production sandbox environments. And then we have the unified developer experience. And the unified developer experience is the newest one, and it allows us to use Visual Studio on our laptop or PC without having to access any virtual machine, and then we deploy the code to a Dataverse environment that has F&O installed in it. And a unified developer experience can be found in the PPAC, which is Power Platform Admin Center. And, well, Power Platform Admin Center will be replacing LCS as the management place for environments. So for today, I will be using a unified developer experience, and I will show a bit of PPAC if I have enough time. So we have a comparison of LCS and PPAC. Also about cloud environment types. This is a really small comparison. So you can see the table. We have the cloud-hosted environments, BHD and UDE. And, well, cloud-hosted environments and UDE are cloud environments, and the BHD is not a cloud environment. So cloud-hosted environments are deployed on your customer or your Azure subscription, and UDE environments are created on the Power Platform Admin Center, so they consume Dataverse capacity. All of them use source control. I mean, that's good. And not all of them can have the Power Platform integration set up. And this is linked to, for example, so it's the BHD environment that cannot have an integration with Power Platform, and it's linked to the fact that it's not a cloud environment, that the BHD is a self-contained environment that has everything that you need to develop using Dynamics 365 F&O, but it's self-contained. It's inside that environment. It's not on Azure. It has no view of external resources. So it's logical that there is no Power Platform integration because there's no connection between the BHD and Dataverse. But you can use a UD environment or cloud-hosted environment if you still use those. And the good news is that development is the same in all environments. So X++ is X++. X++ is the development language that Dynamics 365 F&O uses. It's been around for a lot of years already since it was released in past versions with Exapta. So before even Microsoft acquired Dynamics, Exapta, not the Dynamics 365 ecosystem. And that's good, because this means that you can use the environment that fits your needs the most, and then development will be the same exactly. Next, we will talk about TFVC versus Git. I will start with TFVC, which has been almost the default or the most used version control until I would say the last 1-2 years. TFVC is good enough. It's easier to learn than Git. It's simpler to use. But, and this is the bad news, it has no new features, and it hasn't been announced, but to me it looks like it's approaching end of life. If that depends on how your team will work, choosing between one or the other, but TFVC has been really good. But of course, for modern development flows, Git is much better. So if we go to Git, Git has some problems, which are that it's potentially harder to learn, it's more complex, and yeah, it's more complex when you use it. So the flow with TFVC is really easy. So moving code between branches is really easy. And with Git, it can be a bit complicated, but you need to learn it, in my opinion, because it has many more features than TFVC. It's a distributed version control, so it means that there's not a centralized place where code is. I mean, it is because we have it on Azure DevOps, but you can have your branches, local branches on your PC or your virtual machine, and you can keep doing the check-ins there, and when you're happy with the changes, you send them to the Azure DevOps. But until then, it's on your laptop or on your virtual machine. It has better code review tools. And one great thing is that it allows you to use pipelines as code, which we will see later. And well, if you ask my opinion, even if it's harder to learn and it can have more complexity, Git is the way. And if you're starting with Dynamics, I would recommend start using Git instead of TFVC. But of course, that also depends on what your team is using. Now we will see the basic development flow. Usually development, well, it starts with you coding in your virtual machine or your unified environment. You complete your task, your work items, and then you check in the code into your source control. Once it's in source control, and well, you have tested development environment and everybody is happy, you can use Azure pipelines, Azure DevOps pipelines, to build the code, create the package, and deploy it to pre-production. Pre-production, then we should have another round of testing functional team, or if you have a QA team, whatever. And once it's tested, then the code can be moved into production. This would be more or less the life cycle of code from your development environment until production. And well, these first steps are manual. Obviously, coding is manual. GitHub Copilot is very useful, but still not doing our work, and I hope it won't ever. And checking the code to Git or TFVC is also manual. You need to do it. You need to merge branches, or you need to create pull requests to move the code from a development branch to a main branch. But the last three steps are automatic. So if you have configured CI and CD pipelines, you have an automated build. It will automatically release the code to pre-production or test, however you want to name it. And once it's tested, the production step is up until now it's manual, but it will be automatic in the future if things don't change. So the problem is that right now we need to confirm the deployment in pre-production, and once it's done, we need to schedule manually the deployment to production. And now that we know the basics, we will start, or we will continue with a demo of the development flow, checking in code, and then the pipelines. So first, if I go to Visual Studio, this Visual Studio is on my local PC, and it's connected to a unified development environment on Dataverse. So I'm not working on a virtual machine or whatever. And well, I already have some code that I created for a demo. And first of all, I will clone the Git repo. So if I go to select repository, and here in clone repository, and now I will select Azure DevOps because it's on Azure DevOps, and it will log in with my account. So here it is. I just clone it. You can see that it's cloned into the default path. So I'm not cloning it into the packages local directory. I'm cloning it wherever Git has decided to do it. I could change that, and well, I could do that. And now I still don't have that code available on my virtual machine. So if I change here to a model view, I cannot see the Arista info model here. So what I need to do is I need to go to extensions, configure metadata, and now we need to change this root. So this is the folder for my metadata, which means my custom code. I click the three dots and I will go find the code, which if I'm not wrong, it should be in the source repos. And yes, so here it is, metadata. And I just need to change some fields and click save. You see the extension sometimes is a bit buggy. Once it's saved, I can click close and it will refresh the models, but I always like to refresh them manually. But you can also see that now when it appears, so there is the info model is here. It's just it's a small model with just a table extension of the customer group where I have a new field which is called is online. Yes, is online, which this is a fictional scenario. So what I mean here is, for example, to create a customer group that is for, I don't know, online customers that buy everything via an e-commerce site, for example. And what we will do now is create a new runnable class. So new item, look for a runnable class, and I will call it yes, hello world. Not very original, sorry. And the class will just output an info with hello. You've seen GitHub Copilot has already tried completing it. Okay, so let me move it outside. And if I go to the Git changes tab, we will see some things. So this shouldn't be like that. So I ignored the items that I will not be checking in, and I will only check in the changes to the hello world class and to the project because I added a new class to the project. The changes that you've seen that I have added to an ignore list, once you start working with Git, you need to configure the git ignore file, which you see here that it also has been modified. And well, there you just define what will be included in Git and what not. Because as you know, when you build a project or you build a model, it takes the XML files from the AOT and it also creates other files. For example, the DLL that's later uploaded to the production and pre-production environments. But we don't want that on source control. We just want the XML files for the classes or any object. So what I will do now, remember I'm working on the dev branch, local dev branch. I will check in the code and just hello world, commit these changes. And this commit is only right now on my laptop. It's not in Azure DevOps. So I need to push the changes to Azure DevOps. And okay, you can see here that successfully pushed to origin. Now this means that it has created the branch also on Azure DevOps. Opa. So if I go to Azure DevOps, here I have main, I will refresh, and now I should also have dev. And here it is. And now the dev branch has changes that are not on the main branch. This means that I need to create a pull request. A pull request, which is here, is nothing else than we are requesting to pull the changes from one branch into another. So what I do is create a new pull request from dev into main. You see that sometimes it already does it automatically. It takes the changes and it knows what it's included. In this case, it's the hello world class, the changes to the project because I added the class file, and the git ignore because I did that. And it also shows the number of commits and which commits are included in this pull request. And I can create the pull request. And by doing that, it's not automatically merged into the main branch. This is just a pull request. And the best thing of pull request is that you can add reviewers, for example. Yeah, I will add myself because it's my project and there's nobody else there. And so after adding this another user from me, but with a different email, it says that Adrian must approve. Of course, I could just force it to be merged, but the idea is that we want another person to review the code. So this other person will get access to this pull request and hear which changes are there. And maybe they can say, okay, so use double quotes and comment. And it adds a comment. Then if I went back to the pull request, I would see, oh, Adria has added a comment. I see, oh, he says, use double quotes. I said, oh no, well, I'm using a literal string, not a label, so I'm using single quotes. It's not a label. And I click reply and resolve, and it's done. Then the reviewer can check which changes and make comments and say, okay, it's okay. And then they would approve the pull request. And once it's approved, somebody needs to complete it. So you merge into the main branch. Oh, sorry. Yeah, of course. I'm trying to bypass something, so I can approve it myself. I approve my own pull request. And the good thing is that in Git, you can prevent somebody from approving their own pull request. It has much more options than TFVC. And well, what I will do now is remove my approver and complete it. And now you can see it's merging. And in a few seconds, we should have, okay, the pull request is completed. So if I go back to the files on the repo and go to the main branch, and in the classes, I should have the hello world class. Okay, that's good. Now we have it on the DevOps. But first, imagine that you are developing this and you want to test before checking it, and you're working on a UD environment. So what you should do is go to the extensions, Dynamics 365, and on the deploy menu, you need to select the deploy models to online environment, and then you need to select which models. And well, you have an option to also run the database sync or just deploy the code. If you have changes in the model, in the data model, you need to run the database sync. Otherwise, then you will have synchronization issues on the environment. So because I already deployed this in the past on my environment and synced the database, I will just select the deploy option. I click deploy, and I don't get any dialogues asking for to me to log in because I already did, when I open Visual Studio. But if you do some work and close Visual Studio and open it again, it will ask for your authentication again. Okay, so this is important. You can see here below that it says that the Arista info bin directory doesn't exist. What's happening here? Okay, I created the class, but I didn't build the solution. So I need to rebuild the solution. And this will create the bin folder with the DLL because it's that what will be deployed in the UD environment. So, sometimes it's good that I have some errors on a live demo because maybe they will help someone. So now we need to wait for build to finish. Okay, it has completed. We go back to extensions, Dynamics 365, deploy model to online environments. I will select the Arista info model if I find it. And once it has started deploying, it will take around 2 minutes more or less. It really depends on the amount of code. And obviously, if you select the DB-Sync checkbox, it will take longer because it needs to run a DB-Sync. So more or less 15 to 20 minutes. Also more if the database is quite large. But at least for development, you should be using a Contoso database. So my guess is that most of the times that it will be that around 2-3 minutes for deploying the code and 10-15 minutes for the database synchronization. So in the output tab, if we select FinOps Cloud Runtime, we will see what's happening behind the scenes. So we see that it has created a solution, as I said, and now it's uploading the solution to the Dataverse environment. We see also that it stops the services on the Dataverse environment. It starts the package deployment. Once this is done, which shouldn't take longer, it will start the services. And when the services are started again, see here it's starting the services. And when that is done, the environment becomes responsive again, and we will see it should work. And we will be able to test the code. While this finishes, let me show you something. So first, this is LCS. If you've been working with 365 F&O for some time, you probably have seen this. Here we have both the sandbox environments and the production, if you have it. And the cloud host environments that I mentioned at the beginning can be found here. So I don't have any in this project. I think it's logging. But if I had development environments, they should appear here, and I had all the details to connect to the environments here. But as I mentioned, LCS will be replaced by Power Platform Admin Center. And in Power Platform Admin Center, if you've worked a bit with the Power Platform, you already know how it is. We will have the environments in the Environments tab. This is let me make the text a bit bigger. This is the development environment that I'm using for this demo. I can click it and I will see the details. And as you can see, these environments have a CRM URL and F&O URL. This also means that the Power Platform integration, it comes out of the box. So in the past, on the cloud-hosted environments, you had to deploy the environment on LCS and then create the link to the Dataverse environment. With the new experience, everything is done basically because the F&O environment is installed as an application on Dataverse. Let's check if this is already finished. Okay, it looks like it is. Yes, it's been deployed. So if I go back to the environment and open it, it will ask me to log in. and MFA, of course, even if it's my tenant, I have MFA on. Okay. Also, if you notice, the URL on the UD environment is the same as the production URL, but it's not a production environment, it's the development. So once it loads, I will try to run the runnable class. Using the sysclass runner. Takes a bit to load. It's the after deploying the services start and it needs to cache. That's maybe something not very practical, but it is like this. Okay, just waiting for the default dashboard URL piece. Let me make this a bit bigger again. And come on. Okay, here it is. So I use the sys class runner and CLS parameter for the class, and it was AAS hello world. And now we will get the sysclass runner form and the class will run. And we should get an info. Yes, with a hello world. So you see, this is how we deploy the code to our development environment for testing. And now it's time for the pipelines. If you remember, I've checked in the code here just a few minutes ago, and I did that before deploying the code to the development environment because I wanted the pipeline to start running. So here I have two pipelines. I have a build pipeline that will generate the package and a continuous integration pipeline. Continuous integration is a pipeline that runs after each code has been merged into the main branch because these pipelines are linked to the main branch, and it checks, well, it just runs a build without generating a package. And it does that to check if the code is correct and there are no errors. If you have worked with older pipelines, the classic pipelines, you might remember that there is a visual editor where you have some tasks and blocks. But for Git, if you use a Git repo, you can use the YAML pipelines, which are pipelines as code. And the best part of this, at least in my opinion, is that you can save this pipeline as code. So you also have a track of the changes to the pipelines. So again, for example, this is the YAML for the continuous integration pipeline. You can see it here. And well, it's not completely code, so you still have some, somehow you have a bit of help in some tasks. I don't know why it's not showing here, but yeah, show assistant. I should get, so after selecting, yes, sorry. If I click on this text that is highlighted, I get a more visual, or maybe it's easier for some people because you have the options and you can click here and change them. These pipelines, or the templates for these pipelines, can be found on a GitHub repo from Microsoft. And at the end of the session, I will show a link to my blog where I will publish links, interesting links for development pipelines, the ALM guide, and also this Git repo. And well, so what we must do now is, okay, we know that it's the code is correct. Then what we would do is run a build pipeline. The build pipeline is a bit different than the CI because it has additional steps. So you can see here. And the important steps is that it's creating XPP it's this text xpp create package, and it's creating it's not a cloud deployable package anymore as in the past. It's a cloud deployable package. You can see here that this create lifecycle services deployable package is unchecked, and this means that it will create the new type of package that is used for the Dataverse environment. I will use, instead of running this build, I will use builds run in the past because it takes, 5 minutes to run, and it's not a long time, but it's shorter than waiting. So when the build pipeline runs, it creates these files. So we have this template package and the assets, and it's this DLL file. It's not like in the past, which was a zip file. It's a DLL file that will be deployed to the Dataverse environments. And if we go to the releases in the pipelines, so we have the build pipelines. The build pipelines' main purpose is to build the code for a CI pipeline to check that it's correct, or for a build pipeline to generate the package that will be deployed. The release pipelines are a bit different, are also pipelines, but they are used to get the code from the build pipeline into the environment. And for example, I have this UAT prod release pipeline. And you can see here that the source is the build. Sorry for the name. And we can see that in this continuous deployment trigger, that this line in here has a check, and it's enabled. It means that each time a build that generates a DLL file is run, this will be triggered. And then it has two steps. First, it deploys to UAT, and then it deploys to production. This is also something new, and I think it's a bit work in progress, but now it works and you can test it. I mean, don't do this kind of testing in production, but you can try. And if you know, in the past, we had to, as I mentioned earlier, we had to deploy first to UAT, validate on UAT, mark as a release candidate, and then manually schedule the deployment to production. But with the new releases tasks that are using the Power Platform tools, we can deploy directly to production. Is this good? Yes, but I highly recommend if you add this to your release pipelines, I recommend to add pre-deployment conditions and add pre-deployment approvals and have several people approve. So this means that the deployment to production won't be done until these people approve. And this is very important for several reasons. The first reason is to validate that the changes that will go into production have been tested. And the second reason, and maybe it's even more important than testing, is that you don't want production to go down anytime or during the work hours. So at least if because of any kind of error and the build run and at 2 in the evening or afternoon, sorry, and you get a request at 3 after deploying to UAT. Oh, somebody wants to deploy to production. You say, okay, no, sorry. And this is more or less how a release pipeline looks. Of course, you have more pre-production or testing or UAT environments, whatever the name it is. You can have as many of these boxes here. That's up to you. But to me, this will be an enhancement because it will allow us to not have to schedule the production release manually. And I mean, if you've done many of them, I guess you will be happy because, yeah, in the end, you need to be online, and sometimes you cannot schedule it during your work hours and you need to be working late. And well, as I said, these are the new pipelines. You can see this is one of the old runs. It deployed to UAT. It didn't deploy to production because nobody approved, but it was rejected. So this was some tests that I did, and well, I want to insist in the pre-deployment approvals for production. This is very important. You don't want production to go down at any time without knowing it. And that's one of the risks with the new tasks. But, I think it was Spider-Man, right? With great power, it comes great responsibility. This is it. And, well, if you want to learn if you want to learn more about this, one of the links that I will share in my blog point to a YouTube video of me showing this in more detail. And well, I think that's all. And this is the link to the links page. I will share. I have shared there a lot of helpful links for learning development. For example, Peter Reimer's blog, which has a lot of interesting content and videos, and really a lot of my own ALM guide, links to Microsoft documentation, YouTube videos, whatever. And if you have any questions, you can contact me on LinkedIn, or I think you can find my email on my blog. And well, that's all. Finally, thanks to the sponsors. Thanks to them, it's possible for us to have this kind of events. I also want to thank the organization for having invited me. And well, see you soon. And I hope this has been helpful. Bye bye.